Hey, what's up? And welcome to this very exciting tutorial. My name is Mr. Popo and we are Popo. In this tutorial, we're going to be taking a look on how I created that ball, magic ball, swinging and especially in a perfectly circular path. So we're going to take a look on how to do that, and we're going to take a look on how to use CC Sphere into our advantage and how we can use the power of pre-composition to get some really stylized effect that we probably would have never thought about. I've covered some of these tips previously in my tutorial, but in this tutorial, we're going to go and take it to another level, slowly by slowly. And I will also, on the next part, I will explain how we can do that ghost effect and use some compositing tricks again into our advantage. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It was a really pleasure recording it. Let's get right into it. Alright, first thing first, let's create a new composition. So I'm going to create a new composition. I'm going to call this Magic Ball Tut. I'm going to make sure that the frame rate is 30. I'll explain later why. 1920 by 1080 sounds great. 54, that's a little bit too much, so we're just going to go with 5 seconds. And actually 5 seconds is a little bit too much too, but it will do for now. So let's start by creating a background. So the first thing I'm going to do is new solid, and I'm going to call this background. And in here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use an effect. We know that if we want to create multiple colors, we can use a gradient or we can use a ramp. But for this instance, I'm going to use a new effect called 4 color gradients because I need 4 colors. Okay, so I'm just going to use these colors for now. I normally just practice around, see what kind of color will achieve the mood that I want. And as you can see here from the project file, you'll see that before I was playing with these colors until I changed my mind later on, which was pretty easy to do. So yeah, so I'm just gonna go, this effect, what it does actually just lets me control 4 colors the way I want. I can even blend them if I feel like to, and I think I'm gonna do it because if I don't, you can see that these are, you see that there is a difference between the colors there, but I want them to really blend, and I'm gonna go for a little bit too much here. Also, I'm just gonna go and bring this one here, bring this one just a tad bit here. I don't want this to take over because I want this to be the one, something like that, and just get this somewhere here, just like that. Cool. All right, and the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create that little wavy thing. I'm just gonna go and do a shape layer, and I'm just gonna go here. No, just leave it. I'm just gonna go and create something like this. Because I just want a shape layer to be moving around. I'm gonna use a beautiful effect called Wave Warp, and this effect, what it lets me do basically, it just creates, I'm just gonna show you here, it just creates a wave that keeps on going. There are hundreds and millions of tutorials about this, and I'm pretty sure you've watched one if you're watching this tutorial in 2021. So what I'm gonna do here, I'll have a different styles of waves that I can do, but the one that really interests me in my own way is sine, because it gives me a wave, which is exactly what I'm looking for. But the wave is, first we have this problem here. At the edges of my screen, I have this thing going on here, and then I have this thing going on here. So I wish if I could pin that. If you don't understand what pinning is, I'm just gonna explain to you what pinning is. I'm just gonna create, for example, a shape layer. Okay, and I'm gonna use an effect called corner pin. So these are pins. So when you pin something, it's like, you put a pin in it. That's English. So you can just control the edge of it. It's like, all right, I don't want this edge to move, so I can go and play around, but it will play around the pins, if you understand. So what I'm gonna do is I want these to not move. I want them to be pinned, and here I have a pinning option. Right now it's none. That's why we have this problem, an artifact there. So I'm gonna go and say all edges. So this effect is not gonna affect the edges of the screen. So whatever I put these in, it's not gonna affect the edge of the screen. Okay, sounds great. I'm gonna go and add a little bit of a, I think it's a lot of waves, so I just want to have a big one. And I'm just gonna go and increase this extensively. Like I just want something that's really big, all right? Because always size matters. And what I'm gonna do as well, I'll probably just, I just want a big wave like that, something as such, I think. And if I do it this way, then I'll just have to increase this just a little bit more. Great, this looks amazing. The only problem that I have is that it moves too much for something in the background. So I'm gonna go and decrease the speed by playing with the wave speed. So as you can see here, it's pretty nice, cool, and smooth. All right, it's a little bit too big, so I'm just gonna go to -50. I think that's way better. Of course, it's a little bit too bright, so I'm just gonna take it down to 10%, and I think that actually does the trick pretty good. What do you think? I think that's pretty good. Cool. Now what I would like to do again is just add a little bit of particles just to help the background movement, to help the ball when it's gonna move there. So it's like more magical thing, and add a little bit of life to the background. It's like this microbes flying. So I'm gonna go create a new solid for this. I'm gonna call this particle BG. Cool. The naming is really important because we'll see later on. Particle BG, I'm gonna go and bring in my effect called particular. Okay, it's gonna take some time. All right, so here's my effect. It's basically particles that just spawn, but I don't want them to be that way. So I'm just gonna solid this so that I can explain to you what's going on. So the particle starts and then they start pushing themselves, all right, in all directions. But I wish if I could control that this doesn't really go that way. So right now they're all moving from a point here. So as you can see here, emitter type is point, and I have 100 particles per second. That's a lot. Okay, so I'm just gonna go and do 20. Right now, what do I have? I have every second, I have 20 particles that spawn. When they're spawned, they're pushed, okay? They are pushed because they have speed, they have velocity. And right here, you can see that the velocity is too much. So I wish if I could stop that. All right, but if I stop that, the problem is now they're just born and they're stayed there. So what I'm gonna do, I don't want them to be born from a point, but instead from a box. Why? Because as you could see, now I can take this box, for example, like this, just rotate it a bit, just like that. Cool. So now my particles are spawning. So that's pretty good. But the problem is they just spawn and they just disappear. And let's fix that. I'm done with this. So I'm just gonna close this. I'm gonna go to particle master. Here it tells me that every particle will live for 3 seconds. I think that's okay. I'm just gonna add a little bit of randomness. So one lives for 3 seconds, one lives for 4, 5, okay? So let's just say that it's 5, okay? So one is 4, one is 3, one is 2, one is 1, and one is 5. So there is a little bit of difference, and this is good. Randomness is always good. I have sphere feather. So if you look at my spheres here, my particles, which are spheres, okay, so I could change that to anything I want, but I think sphere will work in our case because we're creating a ball, and we want these to be like dust, magic spheres flying behind. I think if you play with the feather, you will see that, you know, it's sharp or it's very feathered. I'm gonna go with sharp, okay? And because we're dealing with 2D stuff. So sphere feather, it's 0. So now we basically have our particles that are just born and they just stick there and they just disappear. So again, let's try to fix that. But before we get there, we'll see that the size of our particles is 5 right now, and it's a little bit too big. Again, size really matters. So I'm gonna go to 1.5. Okay, so something like that. It's just very simple, very subtle. And if I do that, then I'll be able to go back again to my emitter size and just make this emitter a little bit bigger so we can fill the whole screen. So right now what do we have? They're born and they die. Again, let's fix that. I'm just gonna close this now. I'm gonna go again to size random. I want the particles to be random. So as you can see here, some are big, some are small. Some they die in 1 second, some at 5. Great. But I wish if they don't just appear and disappear. I wish if they were born, you know, and then they die. It's like they fade away. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say that they're born from 0, so their size is 0. See that? So they die, they are born and they don't just disappear. You see that? It's like they fade away, they scale. So it's like 0, 5, 0. So it's they're born. They don't just disappear. Now I wish if I could have some movement, and for this I could add velocity here. For example, 10, not 120, 10. What's gonna happen? Particles are gonna move, and they're gonna be moving that way. That's pretty cool. Let's see. All right, this could work, but if you want to just learn a little bit more about how to actually play with the way they move, stay. I'm gonna show you something. So for example here, let's just say that I don't want them to just keep on moving like this. What if I want them to go this way, like to the edge here, to all keep on moving to the top left? So how are we gonna do this? Well, for that, what I'm gonna do, let's just say that the velocity is 0 for now, so that we can see that we're moving these as we want. Okay, so they are born, they stay in their place. So inside of physics, I have something here called the air. So I'm just gonna create some wind, some air to push these. So as you can see here, I have wind. So if I push this, for example, like this, so as you can see, my particles, when they're born, they're moving to the left. This is good, but not what I want. I want them to the left and top. So again, I have Y here, as you can see here. So now if I just push it a little bit up, what's gonna happen? They're gonna be born and not enough. Cool. So they're gonna be born and they're gonna go all the way up, and that's pretty cool. All right, and to just, you know, add a little bit of randomness to this whole thing, I'm gonna go to turbulence field, and if everything is scary, don't worry, just play with this one. Affect position. So now, as you can see, it affects the position a little bit. So they will be wiggling when they are moving. So they won't just, as you can see here, so look at this one here. So you will see that it doesn't just go straight. It plays in the air, just like if there is some wind that is playing. Cool. And the only thing that I have against this whole thing, everything is beautiful, but the only problem that we have here is that our particles, they're born from the start. I wish if the particles were already there before I start this. So I'm just gonna push the particle start here, then just drag this here. So now, if I look at what I have, there we go. That's pretty cool. So now all I need to do is just add this, blend it with the background with a little bit of screen. I could even make this even more beautiful, so I'm just gonna close everything that is scary. I'm gonna go to particle. I'm gonna put this as 1, okay? And the reason I do this because I want to add glow. Normally, if you use the After Effects glow, it's really bad. The After Effects glow is not really beautiful. But instead, you could use this. But instead, I'm going to use a better plugin. And I really highly advise that you get this plugin. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's called Deep Glow. And as you can see, the glow is 100 times way better than the ones in After Effects. Okay, so cool. So now I created this. Obviously, I forgot to mention that it is also possible that you could go here and you could play with how your color starts. So let's just focus on this again. So right now, if I do set color to overlife to at start, I'll be able to choose a color and all particles are going to be that color. But if I want them to have a little bit of a color while they're alive, so this is where they start and this is how they're gonna die. And I can choose different stuffs. Okay, so I could just choose 2 colors if I wish, and that's probably what I'm gonna do. Okay, so just so that they can blend in with the background even more. So again, just so that you can know, you could just click there and you could add any color you feel like you want to add. Okay, so I think I'm gonna go with this. Perfect. If this is less particles, you can just go into emitter again, close this, go to emitter, and you can increase the number of particles that you have on the screen. But I think it's too much if we go anything beyond 20, because remember, we're still gonna add a little bit of stuffs in front. Great, so now we created a particle, we created a wavy thing in the background, and we created a beautiful gradient background. Now what? Now let's start looking at what is CC Sphere. Okay, to understand CC Sphere, we're gonna do something just to showcase it. So the first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna create just a solid, just so that you can understand what's going on. So this is just an example, and I'm gonna create square, just so that you can start understanding. So two things. Now we know that if I go right click, pre-compose this, what After Effects is gonna do, he's gonna take these two layers or whatever layer that I selected, and he's gonna put them in a folder together. So if I do anything to the folder, it's gonna affect the layers inside of it. For example, if I put these two inside this pre-composition, After Effects is asking me, what's the name of this new composition, this new folder? Okay, so look at compositions just like a folder. So I'm gonna call this example sphere. Okay, now this folder, now if I do anything to it, it's gonna affect both. Now if I go inside, both are still how I created them, but outside, because I'm transforming this folder, I'm basically having effect on whatever that is inside. So that is clear and easy to understand. What I'm gonna do now is, if I actually apply an effect to this, it's actually gonna affect everything. For example, if I go and do a curve, as simple as that, if I play with the curve, I'm actually affecting all the layers. In the same way, if I go and create the effect called CC Sphere, it's gonna take everything that is in this composition and it's gonna make it as a sphere. The CC Sphere is the free or the After Effects built-in version of Video Copilot Orb. Video Copilot Orb is the plugin, it's like the effect that is enhanced from CC Sphere. CC Sphere has only the basic needs, but Orb from videocopilot.net has more options and runs even faster because it's using a GPU. So now, what is CC Sphere? CC Sphere basically takes anything that you put and rounds it into a sphere. So, for example, just so that you can see exactly what's going on, if I take this like that, rotate it just like this, and I take this one here and just do something like this, I just want you to understand what's going on. Cool? So it's rounded. And basically what I can do, I can play with the rotation. As you can see, it's a full ball. Okay? I can also play with this. I can play with the rotation as well. It's pretty a lot of things that I can do. And I can even change the order, but it doesn't really matter. Radius here is how big is my sphere. Offset is basically position. And here is render full, outside and inside. What does this mean? Let me show you. So I'm just gonna turn this a little bit like this, okay? So what is render full? Render full, basically you see the whole sphere, front and back. What do you mean front and back? This is the back side. This is the front side. So depending on what you need from CC Sphere, you can actually get exactly what you need. But for our case, I can go with full. All right. If full disturbs me later on and I feel like, oh no, there's a lot of issues with it, I don't really like how it's going, you can actually just opt by going only on the inside or the outside. Most of the time you'll go outside of full. It's really hard to, the cases are very hard that you go inside. So for now, let's just stay with full. Okay, so light, this is where your light is gonna come from. The light, how it's gonna propagate on your sphere. You can also change the light of the sphere, so it's really beautiful stuff. And the light intensity. So I'm not gonna touch this for now. Okay, so for shading, I have fewer options. Okay, and we're just gonna focus on ambient, diffuse, and specular. Cool. So what is ambient? Ambient is basically how the light is going to affect your sphere. So if I go into full 100%, you'll see that my sphere is fully lit in. Here, what is the diffuse? The diffuse is basically your surface, the surface of your texture. It's like your colors, your main colors. So if I take this down, let's just bring this back to what it was. And if I take this down, you'll see that I basically barely see anything. And if I take this down, I barely see anything. But the diffuse helped me see my colors. Okay? But in the same time, if I take this to 0 and I put this into 100, I'll basically have my sphere, but without any shadows, which is stylized. This is what we call stylized, which is beautiful. And this is what we're going to use for our example. Because, I don't want to have 3D. I want things to be stylized and beautiful and cute. Now, I still have a little problem here, if you can see. What is this? This is reflection. In 3D, reflection, we call it specular. So specular is that little thing, that light that hits the object. Okay? So again, just for presentation purposes, I'm going to get back to what we was. Here, specular is that, you see that light reflected on your sphere? And just so that you know that it's a light, if I change this to anything I want. Okay? So specular is that little reflection on your object. And roughness is how blurred it is. So the more I increase the roughness, the blurrier it gets. Okay, but for my example again, I don't need anything here. This is not a metal, it's a stylized sphere, and I don't need the diffuse. I just need this to be super stylized. 100. I hope I'm making sense. Okay, this is very simple. Cool. I think the radius is too big, so I'm just gonna turn it down. So close this, and close this. All right, so now that we created a sphere, let's create how it's gonna move so that we can understand what we're doing. So normally, if you want to do that circular path, it's gonna be very hard. Okay? Why? Because if you try now and you'll try to go to offset and you will have to animate this like this a little bit. You will say that, oh, you want this to be, you see, it's already hard because I have to control this. Okay, so first I'm gonna say that this will start from the top. Okay, so start from the top, we go to the left, and then we go down, and then we go to the right, and then we come back to where we started. Now, where is the problem now? Let's look at what we have. I cannot control this as a sphere because I don't have any handles. So this is really hard. And also it's really hard because I have to always not click on this. I have to click on this so that I can control this. So this is not the right way to do these kind of things, obviously. So instead, I'm going to use a technique called parenting. What am I talking about? I'm going to create a null object. A null object is an object that doesn't do anything. We can't see it, it's just there. Okay? But I can see it on my view. Okay? Cool. What am I going to do with this? Remember that this is an offset, right? And this is the position. I can see this, I can control it. Great. So if I take this offset and I'll tell it, look at the position of my null, it's red. Nothing to worry about, because if I go to my null object, I'll be able to control my sphere position. Isn't that beautiful? It is. But still, the problem would be that I'm I'm gonna need to waste a lot of time to get a perfect sphere. And just so that you can understand, I'm gonna try to go this as fast as I can. Just push it to the right. And now I'm gonna try to bring it back what it was. Cool, we got it. Now all I need to do, and I quote, all I need to do is try to get this spherical. Do you see the problem now? The problem with this is that it's really, 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 really hard to get a perfect sphere. It's really hard. It's nearly impossible for a human being to do a perfect sphere. And it's already taken me so much time. Well, what are we gonna do, Popo? Well, there is a better effect. There's a better way to do this. And it's very fast and simple. And you're gonna like it a lot. Why? Because if I, for example, let's just say I create a solid and I create a mask like this. Okay. If I go to the mask, I have the mask path, basically where my points are. If I select the mask path, I go to edit, copy, delete this, and then I go to position, edit, paste. Look what happened. After Effects pasted me my mask. So in the same way, what does this mean? It means that whatever shape my mask is, I'm gonna be able to create that position from the mask shape. So in the same way, if I take my mask pad like this, and then I go to position and I paste it, look what happened. After Effects created that position exactly how it is. Great. Now this is not what I need. This was just for explanation. So what did I say? I said that I wanted a circular pattern because it's really hard to do it as a human being. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna roughly say that my sphere is gonna rotate around this. Start from here, rotates, come back here. Now all I need to do is go to my mask, copy, go back to my position, paste it, delete. Beautiful, isn't it? So now I have a full sphere going around. So I'm just gonna go F9, and I'm just gonna drag. As you can see, those points in the middle, we call them rov across keyframes. What does that mean? It means that whatever these keyframes are, they're gonna change according to the first and the last, which is great for me. So I'm just gonna do this. All right, and to make the speed even better, I'm gonna make it slowly get some speed, and then it's gonna fall. So when it's gonna fall, it's gonna go super fast, and then it's gonna take a lot of time to go up, because that's how real world works. Perfect. Now, what can we do here? Well, we're pretty much good, because what I can do now, I can go to my sphere, and remember, I can play with the rotations. So I could do whatever I want here. For example, I can just put a keyframe here, put a keyframe here, put a keyframe here, and I'll just play with how I want it at the end to look like. Let's just say that it's gonna rotate a bit, and it's gonna move a little bit like this. So what's gonna happen? Okay, and I'm gonna try to do the same thing again here. So I could just take all the keyframes and make them go super fast and then slow as they go up. All right, so that's possible if I want to do something like that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Great. I'm just gonna cancel it for now because I just want to focus on the most important things. Now, this is not exactly what we want. We want to have control over what we see there. Let's go inside. Cool, so I don't need any of this. This was just for an example, so I go outside, I don't see anything because I don't have anything inside my folder. So let's start creating some beautiful stuff. I'm gonna start from the middle. I'm just gonna make a rectangle shape, one in the middle. What are we gonna do in this middle thing? Well, what I could do some colors, because again, if I go back, this is what I see. Great. Now I'm just gonna go and do a wave warp. Okay, again, you can go here and say wave warp, and I put it here. Okay, again, I'm gonna go to all edges so that I don't have something weird here. Okay, and I'm just gonna increase how this is big, but the problem is I have way too many waves and I don't need that much, so I'm just gonna go and make the wave width really big. Okay, something as such. Cool. Remember that I can always control where the wave goes. All right. The wave is a little bit too fast, so I'm just gonna go and decrease it. Great, I'm just gonna save. Okay. Perfect. Now if I go outside, you will see that anything that I actually have there, you see the wave is animating and everything is just there. So that's perfect. I'm gonna change a bit the color of this. I'm gonna go to a ramp, gradient ramp. Again, you can just do this thing here, gradient ramp, and I'm just gonna put this one here, and I'm just gonna put this one here. Or I could actually just change this to a radial, so center and the outside, or maybe the center and the outside here, something like so. Yeah, something like that. But of course, I don't want this to be black. I want something pinkish. All right, let's see what we have. Great. Perfect. Now let's create more waves. I'm just gonna go and do exactly the same thing. So I'm just gonna duplicate this, and I'm gonna put this somewhere here, and I'm just gonna change the colors. I'm gonna say that I want a 4-color gradient this time, and I'm gonna choose the same colors that I did for the background somehow. So I'm just gonna go and change those colors. So I have some already set up colors that I've done for that example, so I'm just gonna use them, and no need to reuse and reinvent the wheel. Again, my colors are all around, so all I need to do now is do something like so to play with it perfectly. Just gonna select this last one and put it here, and I just want to merge these colors together a little bit again because I don't want to see that big difference between them. And yeah, I think this does it. As you can see, the wave is looking exactly the same, so I'm just going to change it to show that, you know, I have differences, because if I go back here, it's exactly the same. It's not beautiful. So, I mean, it is, but it's better if we have a little bit of a difference. I'm going to add something like so, and I'll probably just increase this like so. And maybe what I want again is have this go slightly faster than this one. Let's see. Perfect. So now it's already way better. Okay. By the way, we're seeing just the outside, so now we're seeing full. The reason I was talking about the outside and inside is because sometimes you do have this problem. Okay. So that's why sometimes you just want to see the outside, or you want to see the full thing. So let's keep the full thing for now. Okay. So now we have the sphere going beautifully there. That's great. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the 2 bottom ones. Okay. And then I'll be back. Okay. So I went and I created this 2 here. So as you can see, it's just this with these colors, and I just created another one here. Of course, just remember that when you do this, you can actually just add in some indifferences if you feel like it, by just selecting the shape layer, and you can just you know, create very interesting looks. So if I just take this off, it still will be available there. Just, you know, just know that you can add whatever shape you want. You don't really have to go with rectangle. For example, I could just, let's just say I could just duplicate this, but instead of having a rectangle, I can actually go for a sphere, and I'll just delete the rectangle. And that would still actually be there. So you don't really have to go with a line if you don't want to do that. Okay, so now that we've done this, let's talk about how to create that sphere inside. The reason I'm going to do that sphere inside is because I want to show that this is like a form of life, the sphere's form of life, but in the same time it's going to make this full. Because right now we have emptiness in the sphere, and that's not really good. Okay, so we have it rotating and everything, but the problem is it's empty in the inside. So let's just try to fill it. And to fill this, I'm going to go and create a ball, a sphere, and it's going to be somewhere here. Okay, so I'm holding Control and Shift so that it's perfect while I'm dragging. Somewhere around here. Cool. And I put it between two things. Okay, so now if I go back and see what I have that sphere like so. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go and call this sphere. Obviously I could put this here if I feel like it. Okay, so right now I think the sphere is a little bit too big. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go inside the sphere and try to scale it down a bit and put it between these two. Okay. I think this is rotated, that's why. Yep. Cool. Alright, so now I can see that this is my sphere. It's still a little bit too big. I'm just gonna scale it down. Just a little bit. Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Cool. Actually, what I could do is this one. I could even put it here. Let's just see how that's gonna look. Nah. Yeah, let's just keep it this way. Now, what I'm gonna do, I want this to show that it's live, but if it's live, it shouldn't be this super sharp. So instead, I'm gonna use an effect called Fast Box Blur. Fast Box Blur is a blur that is really beautiful because it simulates like something that is looked at from the mirror, from behind a mirror or something like that. And that's why I like to use Fast Box Blur, and it's more strong than having to use a Gaussian blur. So for example, if I try to show you Gaussian blur, you will see that it needs to take a lot of time to just fade, and it's not really beautiful. Okay, so I can just use something like that, or just a little bit. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a deep glow because I want this to glow, so I'm just gonna put it before this, and I'll have this black thing, and that is very normal because I need to click on this one. So now it's screened. Okay, so I'm just gonna go for deep glow. I have some few things that I can change here, and one of them is the exposure, is how high is your glow. So I'm just gonna go and turn it down, and I can actually make this radius of the glow go even more, as you can see here. See that? So this is the radius of my glow. So if I go something like this, I go outside so I can see that there is a little bit of glow. Cool. All right, the last little thing that we need to do is we need to glow everything else, because this is glowing. It doesn't make sense that this is the only thing that is glowing. So I'm gonna go to glow everything together. I'm gonna go and create an adjustment layer. Why? Because if I try to glow this and glow this and glow this and glow this, and then later on I see that, oh no, it's not good, and I want to change how the glow looks like, I'll have to change it for every single thing. That's not good. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to apply my glow, because adjustment layer applies the effect for everything that is below this layer. So if I go, for example, put a glow, it's going to apply everything that is below. So if I put this one up, it's not going to affect it. If I put this one up, it's not going to affect it. Okay. And if I hide this one, it's not going to affect it. Cool. So I'm going to call this glow. Now, the glow obviously is not beautiful here because it's too much. It's really big. So I'm going to decrease how hard it is. Okay. And then in the same time, I'm going to spread. You see, I'm going to spread that radius. Cool. So now if I go back, okay, so it looks very good. The only problem that I see here is that I have that black thing there. So I'm just going to go inside, and I'll see that I need to click on this one. Cool. And if I go back, perfect. Now we have a beautiful sphere. What are we going to do now? Now we have to take care of how everything looks like. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a color correction so that we can have a better feel of how this sphere goes like. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new adjustment layer. I'm going to call this CC. Okay, that's all I need to do. Now, remember that call this CC. Oh, not this. Now remember that anything that I do here will affect everything below. So I'm going to call in curve. Okay, and I'm just going to add a little bit of light, but then I really want to darken those are dark. See how beautiful it brings everything here? Great. In the same way, I'm just going to add a little bit of, because you can see those red part, I'm just going to turn them a little bit up, you know, so that they are more crispier. They just die off like that. For the blue, I'm not sure I really want to touch that, because if I touch it, it's very sensible because I have so much blue. And I think, yeah, this is really not good. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it this way. I just want to see if I play a little bit with these sides. Yeah, I think this is great. Okay, now I talked about the frame rate. Right now we have 30. Let's look at what we have now. So we have our ball that goes like this. I can see 30 frames of all the movements, but I wish if this was stylized. And to actually make this really look good, I'm gonna go and add time posterize. What does this mean? It means that I can control the frame rate of my animations just from this. I don't need to go and do Control K and change the composition settings. Okay, so if I do here 12, what it means it takes this, how many frames, and it's gonna cut them. So what are we gonna have? We're gonna have a very stylized move like this. Let me see. You see? Now we have a stylized move. And I can of course increase this to 13 if I feel like 13 is way better. So normally 13, 12 should be really good for this kind of cutted stylized movement. You see now it's really good. Look, now that this is cutted, it is cut, it really looks way better for the background. Even the particles, everything is looking really smooth here. So we're doing a really great job. For next part of this tutorial, I want you to start practicing this, have a fun with it, understand it, so that on the next part of the tutorial, what are we gonna do? We're gonna learn how to create more stuff in the background and how to make this even crispier, and most importantly, how can we have that ghost effect. I hope you enjoyed this part of the tutorial. I'll catch you, all of you guys, next tutorial. My name is Mr. Popo and we are Popo. I'll see you on the next one.